So, in his book, How Bad Are Bananas? The British author Mike Berners-Lee states that an ordinary email has a carbon footprint of about 4 grams of CO2, and the nasty emails, those with attachments, emit as much as 50 grams of CO2. So I receive about 5,000 emails a month that I read. If you do the math, that's about 60,000 emails a year. I did some numbers and I found that the carbon emissions from my emails alone is about a ton of CO2. To put this into perspective, I emit as much CO2 from my email as an average Indian adult does in 6 months in his or her course of daily life. While there are many assumptions in computing the carbon cost of my email, one might argue, the example just goes to show how the carbon emissions from IT silently adds up in the background. So I'm Shank Som, the Chief Innovation Evangelist at TCS. And in the next 45 minutes, my TCS colleagues, Vijay, Michelle, and I will delve into how we can green the digital DNA of organizations with a very special emphasis on software, on infrastructure, and impact. So let me dive straight away into the topic of greening software. Software is critical to the overall sustainability of the ICT sector, as it is the proliferation of software that triggers the people, the energy, and the hardware flows that account for the overall sustainability of this sector. There is a general lack of life cycle analysis frameworks for measuring and abating the sustainability challenges of traditional software. There is also a pressing need to integrate sustainability by design in the software development lifecycle. As new types of software systems such as AI and ML, new types of deployment architectures such as Edge, and new development paradigms such as low-code and no-code emerge, we need to take a fresh look at how we build sustainable thinking into software. The panel explores these topics and suggests mental models and approaches to tackle sustainability challenges in software. Let me now introduce our eminent panel. Keith Stryer is Vice President Worldwide AI Initiatives at NVIDIA and the Chair at the AI Compute Task Force at the OECD. My second panelist, Vinod Kachru, is President Innovio. As President of Innovio, Vinod is focused on guiding product strategy, partnerships, scaling delivery, raising brand awareness, and accelerating market momentum and growth for Innovio. So Vinod and Keith, welcome to the panel. So Keith, let me start with you. We are moving into a new generation of software where the lines between development and deployment are actually blurring. So activities such as model training, hyperparameter optimization are not only compute intensive but also bandwidth intensive, especially in the case of cloud ML. Online training of an active model requires even more energy to be expended. Training a single neural network model today can emit as much carbon as 5 cars during their lifetime. And the amount of computational power required to run large models has been increasing exponentially, with almost a 3.5-month doubling time. So give us a mental model of how CIOs and other senior tech execs should start thinking about the environmental footprint of AI. So over to you, Keith.
Thanks, Sanka. Good question. So I think CIOs have to really step back and appreciate that it's not just exponential, actually, it's super exponential, if that makes sense. In just 5 years, the computational requirements for training a large-scale deep learning model increased 300,000 times. So the pace of innovation on both the hardware and the software side, and also the data science side, has really redefined the requirements for IT, right? And so if you're a CIO and you're used to conventional sort of models for measuring performance, measuring risk, planning, forecasting, resourcing, right? All those models are really challenged, and some are completely decimated in the face of this new paradigm. And that's really what it is. Artificial intelligence is a lot of things, and we can spend 2 days debating how to define it. But it is ultimately the automation of automation, right? I mean, you have models that aren't just classically programmed, but they're now trained, and this leads to this leads to a completely new paradigm of technology deployment inside a large enterprise, right? So if you have software that effectively writes itself by learning through data or experience, depending on how you look at it, then how do you create the organizational structure around that to manage that process and to do it in a way that's also sustainable, right? Sustainable for the world, right? Not just your organization, but for the world. That technology is being defined by these mega data models that increasingly need mega computing. And whether it's in the cloud or whether it's on-prem, regardless of where it is, you have to be mindful of that. And this, you may not have the skills in your organization to really understand all those issues. So, one of the key first steps is to really make sure you have the right talent, either in your organization or perhaps on retainer, or in a partner through your ecosystem, however you get access to that talent to really understand the implications for the particular system that you're deploying. Now, if you buy AI as an enterprise product, let's say it's a feature inside of some other enterprise system, then you're going to have a lot less control over the kind of energy footprint that's involved there. But if you are developing and deploying your own proprietary AI models to solve problems for either your enterprise or for your customers, then you really need to not just look at what AI does in that narrow context, but more broadly, what are the implications for the environment? And that takes a certain kind of expertise that's not widely available. So that, asking the right questions, having the right people to ask those questions, doing the specific analysis on the implications of the computing, and frankly, starting to rethink your computing model and the software that runs on that computing. It isn't just you can't just assume that you have the right infrastructure given this new environment, right? One GPU enabled server can replace 100 to 150 CPU servers, and so that that has profound implications for your energy footprint, your data center design, your procurement, and ultimately your ML ops and your ongoing operations. So you really have to step back and not view this as an incremental, but consider this a stepwise evolution of the corporate IT model, and potentially add to your team, evolve your models, and start to ask a whole new set of questions.
Thanks, Keith, for those brilliant insights. So I'll move over to Vinod now. So Vinod, let's talk about low-code, no-code. It's definitely a buzz. And while there are many labels being assigned to low-code, no-code, such as citizen development and democratization of development and etc., the base value proposition to me seems to be a step improvement in productivity. So no-code expands the base of developers by making development more accessible to non-developers. And by non-developers, I mean business users. For developers themselves, the value proposition is usually higher productivity by use of things such as visual metaphors, code reuse, and also access to a library of optimized components. So can low-code, no-code potentially be a way to develop software more sustainably is the question that I'm going to pose to you, Vinod. And I do agree that I'm going out on a limb here by tying low-code, no-code to sustainability. So we're pretty much in uncharted territory. So, any response from you, Vinod, will shine a light in a tunnel which is quite dark at the moment. So over to you, Vinod.
Thanks, Sankar. Lots of themes and questions embedded here. So let's start with the low code, no code. It is new buzz, but also a wave which is very futuristic in nature. Let's look at the buzz created by the low code. Almost everyone wants to play there. You can be a core system vendor who is creating configuration capabilities for business users. This is just smart software development and delivering productivity, which was promised decades back. No code, on the other hand, is what enables citizen developers, which can be business or IT, to model their business on what we call a canvas. It's like painting a picture. You best guess on, or your innovative thinking on how a business process should work. All the engineering and technology then goes into a processing engine, which takes this business model and converts it into an application software. It's UX, it's data models, it's process models, integrations, APIs, all of it. And the engineering is really never done, as you continuously will find new patterns, new technologies, and new integrations that you need to model with minimal effort. It gives you a path to evolve your software and your solution, as well as your business models with minimal effort. I personally think NoCode is a game changer, as it brings you overall advantages, as we have seen, of 3 to 10x for timelines, for resources, for your overall TCO extra when compared to the traditional software development. This is exactly what contributes to the overall sustainability. You just need less resources, period. And over time, you can keep making it better as you develop reusable widgets, reusable solutions, which will start to create further efficiencies. NoCode also enables an ecosystem, which creates the best business IT collaboration with very little need for translation. Okay, you integrate and enable external capabilities, external innovations with a faster speed. It also fuels API economy and concepts like embedded insurance, which get closer to actual human behavior and actual human needs. I like to buy a sports car, and the experience can embed car financing, insurance, other connected things into that car buying experience for me. As a consumer, that's good for me. As genome mapping becomes mainstream and I become more aware of disease markers, my healthcare, my wellness, my life insurance need to start to become more integrated and embedded in each other. Technology needs to become more ubiquitous as business models will keep evolving.
Fantastic answers and insights, Vinod. So now let's get some convergence in this discussion. So Keith and Vinod, if you can write a prescription for a Monday morning agenda for your audience on how they should start thinking about embedding sustainability into the software development lifecycle, what would it be? And I'll start with you, Keith.
Yeah, I think the best place to start is to put it on the agenda. And I know that sounds kind of pedantic, but if I go back 7, 8 years ago, when the enterprise was really starting to embrace this idea of digital transformation, don't forget that wasn't that long ago. That was less than 10 years ago. Very, very few CIOs even were thinking about digital, and even fewer were thinking about the user experience in the context of enterprise IT. That took a few years for CIOs just to put that on the agenda. And once they did, it was a new lens through which they thought about everything else that they were doing. Is this approach digital enough? Are we thinking about the experience and how this might impact employees, partners, customers, vendors, so forth? Those are just questions and filters they did not have historically. So the best place to start is to put sustainability on the agenda. Are we thinking about it in the right way? Have we asked our vendors? Are we thinking about it in our data centers? Are we thinking about it, not just can we do this application? Do we need to? What about the implications for it? So that's the best place to start. Put it on the agenda, and then you can go from there.
Get it on the agenda. What a wonderful insight, Keith. So Vinod, what would be your reaction to this?
I think Keith gave a great answer. Building upon Keith's answer, to me, software development traditionally has been specialized and custom. We have made the problem worse with both aging technology and aging workforce. With the advent of new architectural paradigms and interoperability, including standardized APIs, AI, machine learning paradigms, the overall landscape has started to become simpler from a software development perspective, but it is very, very compute intensive. We have to move our compute from legacy applications and legacy hardware to newer, more greener hardware. This requires us to transform legacy platforms as we make, in some cases, legacy also irrelevant. Don't just think transformation. We need to start to make legacy irrelevant. We don't need to reinvent legacy in newer ways. It will keep getting more and more complex as business models keep evolving. So at a vertical level, our complexity and footprint will only increase. With straight-through processing, automation, AI, ML paradigms, we have the opportunity to considerably decrease our horizontal footprint, which contributes to sustainability eventually. Airlines and retail industries have proven this across many, many use cases. And our pitch, again, my pitch on Monday morning as I go back to our audience is to consider low-code technologies because it will create efficiency and sustainability in your overall technology SDLC, as well as your business models.
Thanks for the insightful comments, Vinod. And what a fantastic discussion. And I could have personally carried on easily for an hour on this. But unfortunately, we have to wrap this up now. At TCS, we are seriously looking into this area of greening software. There are enough white spaces here for TCS, for NVIDIA, and Innovio to work together with execs from our audience here to develop not only an approach, but also some early wins in making software more sustainable. I thank my panelists, Keith and Vinod. It was a pleasure having you on this panel. And now, over to my colleagues, Vijay and Michelle.
Thank you, Shank. That was a fantastic discussion on green software. Hello, everyone. I'm Vijay, and I'm part of TCS Asia Pacific, heading business transformation for the region. Today, we are going to have another interesting conversation on green infrastructure with eminent industry leaders from Asia Pacific. With COP26 summit in Glasgow, where world leaders gathered to discuss climate change, pledging their commitments and actions towards net zero goal, no better time to speak about green infrastructure than now. So, if there is an interesting report from International Energy Agency that data centers consume nearly 1% of global electricity demand and contributing to 0.3% of all global carbon dioxide emissions. The desire for data-driven analytics to assist in decision making, coupled with the accessibility of computing power, be it in on-prem or on cloud, has sent demand for servers skyrocket. With big data exploding and computing needs growing rapidly, these figures are only expected to rise if we don't take proactive steps to reduce computing energy consumption. So there's a growing pressure from scientists and environmentalists, increasingly the general public to the governments and enterprises, for the creation and maintenance of ecologically responsible products and services. And circular is the buzzword of the moment in green economy forums. The concept of circular economy isn't new. It's about recycling 100% of end waste and limit environmental damage through smart design, smart operations, and comprehensive recycling, aiding to zero landfill. Without much ado, let me introduce our speaker for today, David Kemp. David is a senior business leader with more than 30 years of experience in IT communications industry. David is the director of infrastructure and operations in Foxtel, managing business operations across enterprises. The other panelist for today's conversation is Ivan Chong. Ivan Chong heads IT and digital in Cellcom Axiata Berhad. He is responsible for the transformation of current technology landscape and while driving excellence in IT operations. Ivan has played a vital role in strategically moving Cellcom from a network management company to a service management company. So David, the circular economy needs digital technology and digital technology needs financing and partnerships. So awareness is growing among enterprises for the requirement to build for climate and digital simultaneously. My question to you, David, how can businesses do their part to drive down energy consumption without sacrificing the computing power needed to support innovation? And what are the initiatives in your enterprise to drive net zero pathway?
Hi, Vijay. Thanks for the question. Foxtel, like many service providers, has a huge footprint of infrastructure. We're currently sitting at about 1,000 racks distributed across 7 data centers. That all requires a huge volume of power to drive those servers, cooling, and management functions. We've looked in the past at various ways of how we can try and create a shared infrastructure concept. All of those went a tiny way to be able to try and reduce our footprint. Upgrading over and over for an infrastructure base that size requires a lot of capital and a lot of financing. So Foxtel has been looking at how we can move to our data centers to the cloud. We're about a year into that exercise. That allows us to shut down our data centers, relieve all that energy burden to be able to drive them. Then we can start looking at new models within the within the cloud space to really look at incremental services, fractional use of compute power, really drive not only our cost down, but our requirement for huge amounts of infrastructure servicing our business. We've also taken the step, and like many companies with COVID, is to reduce the requirement for our buildings. We're now looking more at much smaller shared workspaces, flexible working arrangements. We don't need to keep driving extra floors of desks that only may be partially used at the air conditioning as well. And similarly around driving away from desktop computers to laptops, now our users can have one device, they can take it home, use it wherever they need to support those flexible working practices. Across various other parts of the business, we're looking at driving away from physical set-top boxes, much more relying in the future on clientless streaming services built into TVs and devices. So we no longer have to have millions of set-top boxes out in the market. We can look at delivering streaming services into existing footprints of technology in TVs as such. And again, that reduces our requirement for driving power in people's houses.
That's fantastic, David. Good to know that Foxtel is implementing advanced, innovative ideas to bring down the energy consumption. So, Ivan, that was an interesting discussion with David. So, from net zero strategy perspective, what are your enterprises doing, and what key innovative ideas you are implementing towards this net zero goal for Celcom?
We are all aware of the urgency with which we need to reduce our carbon footprint across the board. As a member of GSMA, we are committed to our net zero carbon roadmap towards GSMA's Zero by 2050 commitment, UN SDGs, and the Paris Agreement. It is important that we develop our policies and practices from the point of view of reducing the usage of power and hence emissions. Our net zero carbon roadmap at the Axiata Group level has spelled out specific goals like a paperless workplace and digitized data collection and analysis across the organization. We are moving all our IT workloads to the cloud, thus reducing the data center footprint. To put into context, we are very aggressively moving our workload to the cloud. Here in Celcom, we are targeting about a 50% footprint migration to the cloud in 2022. Even the optimization of algorithms used in a program can improve emissions, so we incentivize our team to churn out more efficient code.
Thank you, Ivan. By now, it's a cliche that data is the new oil, right? The high-tech fuel of 21st century economic progress. But unlike oil, David, we often think of data as having no physical form and therefore no environmental impact. With exploding content market and next generation or the new generation adopting OTT, the gaming and the e-commerce rapidly, how do we make them more inclusive in driving circularity? And what are the innovative business ideas you are planning to implement to your consumers, David?
When we look at that, agreed, data is key to any business. Internally, it drives a huge cost in storage and systems to be able to mine that. And again, with our cloud migrations, centralizing our data footprint, which has been distributed throughout the business, try and get it in one location, enable that to drive many more business decisions and functions, and leverage different services that we can to our consumer rather than just presenting walls of content to our customers. How can we make decisions on their behalf and promote certain pieces of content or media or services that we provide to them based on functions and other experiences they've had with Foxtel. So I think leveraging our data sets, observing customer behavior on our platforms, and then making that judgment on what the next best action might be for those customers is really going to be able to drive a more premium and tailored service to our customers.
Ivan, how are you including larger stakeholder groups in responsible and conscious recycling initiatives, and how might enterprises motivate their consumers to participate? Can you share your thoughts, please?
Within the Axiata Group, we are getting the carbon inventory done. This helps us to know where we are and hence how to go about a roadmap. We are also enhancing environmental awareness and advocacy across the employees. We have always incentivized customers for going paperless for their invoices and contracts. Take, for instance, our subsidiary, Udo. They do not have a physical store, but provides superior customer experience. Last but not least, it is imperative and possible that we consider sustainability in every policy that we formulate. And it goes without saying, we are all in this together and have to collectively bring about real change.
Thank you, David and Ivan, for your precious time coming to our forum and sharing your enterprise initiatives with us.
Thank you, TCS, for inviting me to this sharing.
No worries, Ruchi. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you.
That was a highly informative session with eminent leaders from Asia Pacific region today. As they said, in today's world, we don't just want excellent products and services, but we want excellent products and services that keep our planet in mind. We expect all industries to do their part, but let us also consciously contribute in a small way every day to make our planet green and safe to live for our future generation. Thank you all for listening. Let me hand it over to Michelle for the next segment. Thank you.
Let me welcome you to the last of our Greening Our Digital DNA topics, Green Actions. In this session, we're seeking to explore how digital technology can be the great enabler for our people and our planet, offering increased accessibility, inclusiveness, diversity, reskilling, upskilling, mobility, things that help us progress the SDGs and ensure no one is left behind. And these themes are equally applicable for multiple stakeholders, from employees to customers to communities. At TCS, Green Action is about enabling personal accountability in actions, such as knowing your carbon footprint, as well as increasing our diversity of thinking with 36% women and over 150 nationalities, as well, of course, ensuring accessibility and inclusiveness. Our challenge today is to select from the rich collage of insights to narrow down our messaging to this 50-minute session. We've created an opportunity to hear the perspectives of two esteemed speakers today, Vanessa from NTU in Singapore and Isa from UBS in Hong Kong. They will share some ideas on how we're facilitating better outcomes and how different stakeholders are taking the lead in delivering innovation. If I could turn to you, Vanessa, I'd be very keen to hear your point of view on this broad topic. Technology can be such a powerful enabler for increasing accessibility and inclusiveness, but there can also be some less than positive impacts. So how can we understand the butterfly effects, consequences of technology as it affects the entire system over the longer term?
Thanks, Michelle. That's a really difficult question. I also look forward to hearing Isa's view on it. Well, my spiel is innovation at the crossover of STEM and non-STEM fields. So when it comes to understanding really complex problems, we think of little innovations, little solutions, technology here, technology there, to solve these really complex problems. But to really understand a problem is very difficult. It comes in the field of complexity modeling that combines complexity science, complexity computing with deep domain knowledge from the humanities, from the social sciences. And I think that's where our challenge is, to really have a deep understanding of this problem, and then every little thing that we make, understand what, like you say, the butterfly effect is on the longer run. An example that I might put in here is, for instance, in healthcare. You know, we might try to solve a problem of inclusivity. For instance, you know, scanning for breast cancer. It's humiliating. You know, you lose all your privacy. It's painful. It's like those machines were not designed to be inclusive to women. So we could imagine developing a new machine that is much more comfortable and therefore being much more inclusive. But if we look at the entire chain of a woman's life or a person's life, and how all the factors that lead to breast cancer, that's a much more complex problem to model. All the factors that you need to take into account when it comes to genetics, when it comes to natal care, when it comes to health and diet and lifestyles, etc. So there, if we really want to understand that full system and model that, and then see whether a nudge like developing a new machine actually moves the needle when it comes to early diagnosis of breast cancer, or maybe even preventing it, would be really important. So I guess the core of my position is that we really need to work together across all these different fields to fill in all those little bits to create that complex model, and to be able to understand when we nudge the system by introducing an innovation, what the real consequences are as that new innovation permeates in its consequences through that whole system.
Very interesting perspectives. We could tackle this as a standalone topic for an upcoming knowledge session easily. And so, Isa, I'd love to hear your perspective on how can we work faster, better, happier for a greener planet and more inclusive outcomes. What actions can we take?
That's a great question. Thank you, Michelle. I believe that especially for the financial industry, so let me start with this, new tech offers the opportunity to automate processes, especially if they are highly repetitive and if they're manual and error prone. So for this is a win-win-win-win-win. So it's a win for customers, it's a win for the companies, it's a win also for the workforce and for the environment. Faster, better, and happier, exactly as you just said, it should be the credo. And this is also what we're aspiring to. So if you're looking at it, physical processes, physical documents, and also physical systems is what keeps us driving to the office, and mostly also in rush hours. So, which is totally amazing if you think about it, because most of our products are totally digital. That means in order to tackle the digital transformation and sustainability goals at the same time, we are evolving also a lot around our offices and what can we do in order to get away from our offices or to reduce our office time. So we are looking at the categories waste, energy, water, and paper. And going green in this particular brick and mortar aspect is about reducing paper, but also it's about less emails, reducing risks, and more efficient processes. And this is leading to healthier working hours and also to happier employees. Ultimately, we are very much convinced that the greener we make things, the more resilient we will be as a company, but also we as individuals. And let me give you one very tangible example. Paper consumption is something that we are particularly passionate about. For the past 2 years, we are running a zero paper campaign for the firm, and many of our employees and our team members have contributed ideas, and all of them have led already to a reduction of 50% use of paper. So we measure what matters, and we have had already great success, but it's still a long way to go.
Really liking the addition of happiness here, about reframing what we value and what we measure in this new world that we're in. So thanks for that. Vanessa, can we now take a look at customers and accessibility? If we think about welcoming a diversity of customers, how can we provide solutions to the problems that they're experiencing, things that matter to them, and use this as the guide for prioritizing action?
Oh, Michelle, that's a very complicated problem that you're giving me now. I have a background in artificial intelligence and robotics, so I automatically think about profiling. So for 20 years, the way, especially when it comes to retail but even customer services, yeah, we learn all we know about customers. We check out what they watch on YouTube. We have a look at what they buy with their credit card. We find out all sorts of things, the products that they order. And as we learn more about them, we build up stronger and stronger profiles. As we know from the news, for instance, that Facebook is very strong at. And this is, a traditional approach. But maybe, or what might be an interesting discussion, is whether the kind of responsibility that we have in that relationship is changing. Whereas before, we try to find out who are these people, what do they like, what sort of stuff do they buy, in what state of their life are they? And as we profile them, we push our products and services to them that fit that lifestyle and fit their view. But in a more polarized ecosystem in which we live today, we are basically feeding the customer products and services that reinforce those polarities. So we might even be adding to the problem in that sense. So it would be a really interesting discussion to figure out how we can identify real and pressing problems that these people are experiencing every day, and how we can leverage our relationship with the customer to solve those problems, kind of get at the root of those problems, rather than pushing them the services or information that they think they need, which creates a more even polarized and misinformed world, perhaps. As an example, in developing nations, there's many people who are not banked, not formally banked. And we could think, wow, imagine if all of those people use our service, even if they only pay like $1, imagine millions of people paying $1, we'd be rich. Or we could kind of say, okay, what is at the heart of this inequality? And can we go like on a journey with these people to find out what is at the heart of this financial inequality? Can we solve that and place these people in a position where they can choose to be banked by us, or choose to have a more formal bank account? But it's almost like, you're trying to find out together what the problems are that are stopping humanity from thriving, and trying to create a solution together there.
There are so many valuable insights in there. Thanks for sharing. And so let me turn to you again, Isa. I'm very interested to hear your thoughts on this last question, which goes to the core foundation of where so many leading companies are headed. Can we connect better with employees and engage with awareness and consciousness when we enable their individual purpose? And how can digital help with this?
This goes to the heart of how do we make this happen? It gives everyone the opportunity to use their time for more meaningful work. So this is also then that we enable many colleagues with specific profiles to work from anywhere. So more meaningful work and work from anywhere. I think these are two very important concepts in the digital journey. This flexibility that we are gaining from this can be used for a better quality of personal life and also a better quality of work life. But in order to make this happen, so there is no push of a button where you can say, okay, we are pressing the button and all of a sudden we are all digital. This is not going to happen. So we all need to work for this. And in order to make it happen, we need to change the way we work and the level of technology we are using. This in turn requires our workforce to continuously learn and improve. And making this a priority for our workforce and a positive experience, being inclusive and enabling everyone is a new challenge for companies. It shouldn't be underestimated. We have been trying to develop bite-sized upskilling learnings for everyone, which has been proven to be very successful. And we are going around in the logic of skim, swim, dive, depending on how much you would like to know. And it depends on the interest and the level of knowledge of everyone. The goal is to make learning accessible for everyone at every level, at every stage, and at every pre-knowledge. what we also found is that the most powerful combination for change and for digital is a highly experienced team member with a long-term experience in how things were done in the past, with a new joiner, often even from a different generation, that comes with a very digital mindset already. So if both are curious to find out what the others have to offer, if you're taking the new tech together with the old problems and you're giving together a fresh pair of eyes, then new solutions, new friendships, and also an intergenerational respect is growing. This is absolutely amazing to witness and to be part of. If it works, this is the best ever you can have.
And so to wrap us up, Vanessa and then Isa, could I ask each of you for a brief closing comments and thoughts?
Well, Michelle, I wanted to thank you guys for bringing all these people together, not just in our session, but also in the other sessions. I think it's very exciting that, you guys go out on a limb to think about these problems that we are facing in kind of digital transformation, turning into green transformation, and how to do that in a way that looks at it from all sides, bringing in the perspectives of people from many different backgrounds. So I really appreciate you also bringing in my background, which is a little bit more technological perspective, but really focused on how can we impact people's lives for the better. So thank you for that, and thank you for this effort.
Okay, so my recommendation to everyone who is trying to embark on such a journey is think in problem statements, don't think in technologies. Technologies will change, problem statements will stay. Measure what matters, make use of data to make decisions, don't feel, but make it rationally. Take your workforce onto a journey, don't think it is done, it will be a journey. Everyone is a part of this. If you have a smartphone, like we are having all here, you have all it takes to digitize your environment. So there is no big pre-knowledge necessary. With this, encourage curiosity and lifelong learning. Make it a priority and give it the time it needs. And this journey is not a luxury, it's a necessity. And it's fun. In our experience, the outcome is creativity, and this is what humans do best. So who wouldn't be like to be part of that journey?
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
And so it's a wrap for the Greening Our Digital DNA sessions. I hope you've enjoyed the insights on green software, green infrastructure, e-waste, green actions, and how digital could be a great enabler for increased accessibility and inclusiveness. Prioritizing sustainability across our tech products, services, platforms, and operations is a strategic imperative for all as we race to net zero. And so let me take a moment to wrap up the overall TCS APAC Innovation Forum sessions today. It's been our great pleasure to bring perspectives on how we can build sustainable futures, more resilient businesses, and future-ready businesses through innovation and collective knowledge. We'd welcome your inputs on the survey you can see, and we look forward to working together with you to turn intent to action and outcomes. Thank you.